Yo, what up? Tinky and Tierney ready to go. Monday, absolutely stacked as always. Let's hit it. And we're coming to you from our studios here, Lower Manhattan, the Rocket Mortgage Studio. Need to know what it takes for a home to fit your budget, your family? Rocket can. Man, oh man, what a big football Sunday. Week 2 storyline started to be painted here. Unfortunately, really the theme was injuries. Yesterday, of course, we'll get to that. The Gators keeping things tight in the SEC with a little college football, obviously mostly NFL. Nice bounce back for Sharp Tierney. You didn't think we'd have 2 bad weeks in a row, did you? Teak, what's happening, buddy?
I told you to blame me, man. I wasn't
and
here
I said
on
it's your fault.
Friday.
Yeah,
it worked out.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
So far, listen, we're 6-3. We're laying 11 tonight with the Packers, so we're running with the pack for you bad company fans out there. I got to be honest. Like, I don't know if I'm going to bet money I don't know if I love the pick. I think Detroit's going to muck this thing up a little bit here, but that is the pick I made on Friday, and with a win, we'll be 7-3. But how was the whiteout? Good time at Penn State?
Oh, Penn State
had to
was
be
amazing.
rocking.
It was a great game too. Auburn and coming to town. It was interesting. Auburn claiming, well, we're not going to be intimidated by the whiteout in Happy Valley, Beaver Stadium. We're used to these loud SEC crowds. And so they came. They were all white.
Yep, white unis.
And they changed their face mask to white as well. So Auburn was playing.
It's a good budget, huh?
Oh,
it's a good budget.
They just jacked it. They're trying to jack with Penn State.
Yeah.
You want a whiteout? We're going to go all white unis. And look, both these teams are really good defensively. They're both, I think, they're pretty stout. But the difference is the quarterbacks. Bo Nix, the Auburn quarterback, just can't throw really great deep balls. And so when they got behind to Penn State, it got really challenging for them to make any kind of comeback against Penn State. I mean, he threw some balls up there, but they were never really on target. And on the other side, Sean Clifford played phenomenal. One of the biggest issues with Sean over the last couple of years is turnovers. Just makes bad decisions and bad mistakes. And this year he's had 0 turnovers, and he's throwing the ball like he's one of the top quarterbacks in college football.
Well,
so that was the difference.
Well, did you come home the next day, or
I
did
came
you
home that night?
Ooh.
So
what time did you come to the door? 3?
3:20. Was when I walked in the door.
Wow, okay. I wasn't sure how you were going to do that.
It was a rough one.
And I'm sure Sunday was a little rough, too. Sunday morning, the
yeah.
residue from Saturday.
That's
but
right.
Glad you had a good time. I watched a lot of it on TV. The place was popping as expected. So they now go 7-6 in their all-time
That's right.
Home whiteouts at Beaver Stadium. We'll do a lot more college football coming up hour 2. We'll get to Jameis Winston. Who are the Saints? I mean, were they the team that plastered the Packers in week 1? Were they the team that looked awful yesterday in week 2? The answer's probably somewhere in between. And by the way, I know that a lot of the attention, listen, the quarterback position, it is what it is. A lot of the attention is being directed in the a little more than semi, the resurgence of Sam Darnold. The real story in Carolina is that defense.
Yep.
That Panthers defense is good. And one thing about the NFL, especially defensively, because, when a team has offensive prowess, based on who you draft in your fantasy team, blah, blah, blah. But usually one of those, blossoming they sneak up on you. There's no real warning. And this Panthers D, with myriad first-round picks up front, and good coaches as well, that Panthers team is going to be a bit of a handful in the NFC. They're 2-0.
They just get after it, man. Burns and Hassan Reddick, who we talked about last week, they get after the passer. It's hard, and they get wide. So these guys, line up in these wide nines, so they're way outside the tackles, and it's just hard. You got to be elite tackle to stop guys that can, blitz down or dog downhill and then get around you at the same time. It's interesting how they've all changed. Right, it used to be the defensive ends. I remember when Michael Strahan was when I first got to the Giants, he was like 275, 280. Right, by the end, he was like 240 something. And now you see Hassan Reddick, maybe he's 235, maybe he's 240. You know what I mean? You see the Cowboys put Micah Parsons.
How about that?
Exclusively on the edge.
What a win.
I mean, what is he, 230, 225?
What a win, man, without a few key defensive players.
DeMarcus
now, the refs
Lawrence
in that game were absolutely horrendous.
Of course they were.
Horrendous in that game.
I mean,
They were horrendous in that game.
I think the refs, they've gotten so many new initiatives and directives and points of emphasis that they're overthinking almost everything. I agree with you.
Listen, I don't, and we're going to get to the game from last night in a moment, but I don't, unless it's completely egregious and you can boil down either victory or defeat to like one play in the final 5 seconds of a game, which happens on occasion, but very rarely. I don't complain about officiating. I might make the passing statement, these guys have a tough job. They missed a couple. The refs suck. I can't hide it. I can't hold it in anymore. Listen, I'm under no illusions that the Jets were going to win that game. 4 interceptions, Zach. What are you doing to me, dude? I'm under no illusions the Jets are going to win that game. But the first defensive series, Marcus May strips the ball, strips it loose. At home, 80,000 people. They're whited out as well. Home debut for Robert Salah, playing the Patriots against a rookie quarterback. Ball's on the turf. They blow the whistle prematurely, way prematurely, which negates a fumble. I mean, I know that it's hard in real time. Guy catches a ball. Did he maintain control? Did he dot both feet? But let the guys play football before you blow the whistle.
Yeah, that's an easy one. Just let it play out. You know, who are you? You're not protecting anyone.
Stink.
Yeah, let the play itself.
Even with
out.
Herbert in the grass. What are you doing?
That one was worse. That one was worse.
No, not worse for me.
Yeah, but you know what I mean.
Point taken.
It was worse. I mean, he easily could have spun away from that.
Yes. So. I mean, it's really insane. And I mean, listen, Trevor Lawrence, 3 picks the first weekend, 2 picks yesterday. Joe Burrow had a consecutive
3.
But he had a consecutive pass streak of no picks, which was a record, but which was not a record, but led the NFL. I think it was 199 straight pass without a pick. He threw back-to-back picks. Tua gets hurt. Lamar Jackson had 2 picks. One was brought back to the house. Herbert had the 2 picks. Strange day. And I want to make a point that, and this is not to gloss over, I'll let you take the Raven stuff, all right? Because Lamar, I mean, he's just in the open field. He's pure wizardry.
He's special.
He's a wizard. And the rapport with his head coach, you want to go for it? Hell yeah, I want to go for it. Go, what do you think I'm here for? To lose? Yeah, we're going for it. That's what we're here for. That is the essence. That is the greatness of somebody who believes in their abilities to the highest level. That is something that I can't relate to as an athlete. I am so jealous. I love not jealous. I love watching that, okay? But I want to tell you, I think the real story here, because I'm still not buying the Baltimore Ravens, the real story is that the Chiefs are not as good as people think that they are.
Yeah.
Because the last time we saw them in the Super Bowl, they got pushed around and punked by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Punked. I don't think they looked particularly good in week 1 in terms of what they gave up in yardage. They gave up almost 500 yards in total offense to the Browns.
Yep.
They did the same in a narrow win. They did the same thing last night, almost 500 yards. They don't run the ball. They're among the last bottom 5 teams in the NFL. Now, the Bucs are also bottom 5, so make of it what you will. I know their passing prowess allows them to kind of circumvent the run, but they don't run. Their defense is getting porous. The Chiefs are as vulnerable as they've been in 2 years.
Yeah, look, they're still great. They scored 35 points in a losing effort on the road against a very good defense in and of itself in the Baltimore Ravens.
Well, they didn't score 35 because Honey Badger scored 7 or 6.
But still, it was you count it. Not the offense. I'm not talking about the offense. I'm talking about as a team. But I think there's a little bit of a formula. I'm not saying that you can copy what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did in the previous Super Bowl, and that's the way to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. But you saw at points where the Ravens were doing that. In critical moments in this game, whether they needed to get off the field on 3rd down, they would rush 3. They would drop everybody into coverage, and they said this on the broadcast, and I thought it was very astute. They called it secondary rushing, and so they dropped 3, so everybody's back in coverage. As soon as Pat Mahomes starts to feel pressure, as we saw in the Super Bowl, we saw last night, he starts to scramble. He won't just stand in the pocket when there's 3 players. He gets like antsy. And so he starts moving out of the pocket. And he can make great plays in those situations, but he's moving out of the pocket. And so as soon as he moves out of the pocket, you see those cover guys just dog him. They start to come after him, and it forces him into difficult throws, situations. There's pressure on him. And in fact, one of the big plays of the game was that exact situation happened. Pat Mahomes gets wrapped around the bottom of his legs, and instead of taking the sack, he tries to throw a miraculous throw to Travis Kelce. It gets intercepted and goes the wrong way. That's exactly what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did. They frustrated him and made him uncomfortable waiting around. Like Pat Mahomes he plays so frenetic, right? It's just like it's like bow, bow, bow. Like all these things start happening. But when he's got to sit and wait, he's uncomfortable. And he gets this anxiety about him. And you see him wanting to do something. And good defenses can take advantage of that. That's exactly what the Ravens did to get themselves back into this game. A lot of self-inflicted wounds for the Ravens early. Lamar Jackson, first interception wasn't his fault. Wide receiver's got to stay on his feet. That's a timing throw. He falls down. Lamar Jackson's already letting it go. Sammy Watkins, he's got to stay on his feet. That one's not his. The Honey Badger took back to the end zone. Yeah. The second one, where he was just confused, he thought he had nobody in the middle of the field, and in fact it was cover two. He threw it right into a zone. It was an easy interception for the Kansas City Chiefs. But after that, you saw Greg Roman do what we espoused a week and a half ago, BT.
Yep.
Stop trying to make him Pat Mahomes or any other 350-yard-a-night quarterback. It's not him. It's never going to be him. Let him run the football. Let him get comfortable, leaving people's jocks all over the field. I mean, Nick Bolton on that touchdown run where he just dead-legged him. I haven't seen that in years. He just dead-legged him. He stood still. He got around the edge. He scored a touchdown.
He did.
Let that guy do what he does. And if he gets hurt, so be it. It sucks. But let him be him because he's not comfortable doing anything else.
Well, this is a huge win for him because if they meet again in the playoffs, he's got to move forward with the knowledge that I can beat this team. He's had a few comments in the past. We've talked about it. Not that, you hang on every word because sometimes you just kind of say something off the top of your head and we may be taking it a little bit more seriously than we need to. But the record is the record. And the Chiefs, unless Mahomes goes down, will be in not only the Ravens' way, but all the other good teams in the AFC, even though I do think Kansas City has more problems this year than they've had in the last two. Big win for Lamar. He touched on that post game. Here he is.
Yeah, it feel good. It feel good to get that monkey off our back. It just feel good. Got to move on to Detroit now. We ain't win the Super Bowl yet. It's just one game. We just got to keep staying focused.
I'll tell you, too. First of all, you got to love what he said there because he's right. I mean, you don't want to be overly enamored. All right, we got the monkey off the back. We beat a team we haven't beaten yet, but pulled a page from Belichick. Now it's on to the next obstacle here, and the Lions are still an NFL team despite, being where they've been for the last 10, 12, 15 years, actually really like 50 or 60 years, but I'm going to keep it nice on a Monday. Point being, anybody can beat anybody if you're not buttoned up, and that's a tone setter in a locker room. He's not waxing poetic about beating Kansas City. We wanted to win. We expected to win. We won. Feels good. Next mission, Detroit.
I agreed, and I think it's the play call, the fourth down play call, going for it on fourth down. I know that he was screaming. We saw the video all day of John Harbaugh screaming at Lamar. Lamar, you want to go for it? It was no other call. You can't give the ball back to Kansas City in that point, right? Very rarely you're going to get a bad turnover like they did with the strip sack of Clyde or not the strip sack, it was a fumble of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I mean, that just doesn't, it's not going to happen in those situations. Kansas City is just running out the clock and they're going to kick the game-winning field goal. They get a strip of the football, take over. You got to go get us first down. And Lamar Jackson, just like I've said in many situations, the Giants should have done this. When your best player is your quarterback, put the ball in his hands in critical situations. And the Ravens did that. Lamar Jackson gets the first down, and they win that game. I mean, it's a huge win only because, as you mentioned, it's now not in his head anymore.
Yep.
Right? For all these previous iterations, the last three of the Ravens and the Kansas City Chiefs, Greg Roman has tried to make Lamar Jackson like Pat Mahomes. Like, let's throw the ball 30 times a game. He's never going to be successful that way. They finally figured out, just let Lamar be Lamar, and you're going to win more games than you're going to lose.
But what was the impetus behind that discovery?
Because
we knew it. Why did it take them for so long to figure that out?
Because you feel like you got to keep up with Kansas City. You know what I mean?
Okay, that makes sense.
The teams that beat the Kansas City Chiefs, they generally outscore them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you're not going to stop them. On a regular basis. Maybe you're going to get 3 or 4 stops out of the 9 or 10 possessions that they have throughout the game. And so you in your mind, you're like, all right, we got to score. If we have a field position movement and a punt, doesn't work. We got to score. And so in your mind, you think the only way to score quickly and to keep up is to throw the football. But the Ravens, and after he threw that second interception, they went right down the field, right? And it was just like, the first interception, they go right down the field, and maybe there was one pass. Maybe there was one pass.
Mm-hmm.
The Ravens can score quickly running the football.
Yeah, they can.
And so it doesn't matter who the running back is, even though we give credit to the running backs. It matters what Lamar does. And I'm glad that Greg Roman saw that and figured that out, because you're not going to outscore the Kansas City Chiefs doing what they do. You got to outscore them doing what you do, and the Ravens are pretty good at it.
I want to hear one thing. We heard from Lamar before we get to the injuries, which we'll do coming up next segment here on Tiki and Tierney. Patrick Mahomes, Tiki touched on the defense and what they're trying to do to Mahomes now, stemming back to the Super Bowl with Todd Bowles and what Mahomes is seeing. Here he is reacting to the Ravens defense post-game. Mahomes.
I said it last week. They were letting Trav and Tyreek get open, so I was giving them the ball. But if teams are going to really play over the top of Tyreek or try to double Trav at certain points of the game, then we have the guys that can make plays. And you saw that with the guys that are making plays today. And like I said, I have full confidence in those guys.
All right, there you go, T. Coming up, so we mentioned the injuries. I mean, I don't care. Even if you don't have the red zone. If you have the red zone, every few minutes there was an injury update. If you don't, if you just lean on CBS and Fox, I mean, you're still getting the injury updates. It was savage out there. Big names. So with all the injuries and all the big names going down, which ones are serious enough to actually threaten what could happen the rest of the season? We'll make sense of all that because there's a couple that will. That's coming up next. Tiki and Tierney, CBS Sports Radio. All right, Tiki and Tierney, CBS Sports Radio, CBS Sports Network. Hopefully you had an outstanding weekend. Back on the horse today. Back on the horse on Saturday, coming up on CBS. A full afternoon of college football starts at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Mountain West action, undefeated Utah State and Boise State. Boise State got hosed over the weekend, too, with one of those plays, right?
Yep.
Where they blew the play dead and instead of letting the actual play occur, which took a touchdown off the board. Anyway, 3:30 Eastern, noon 30 Pacific. That's when that comes down. Then the SEC on CBS features 7th-rated A&M. They take on Arkansas, who's rated 20th in the country. All coming up Saturday, all coming up on CBS. Coming up next segment, we've got a little 5-star rewind. We've got Jameis. We'll get to that. Jameis Winston, Florida, Bama. Good game. We'll hit that as well. And what else? We definitely will get to Dak and the Cowboys and that defense, which suddenly has tightened up a bit despite missing some pieces yesterday. All right, all the injuries. I mean, I don't know. I know that when we were growing up watching football, like, there was no red zone. There was no internet. There wasn't the constant barrage of this guy's out. There was no Adam Schefter's, like, this guy's done, this guy's out. So you watched football, and we watched football very differently. Really, the only injuries that we were really acutely aware of were the guys that got, get the spatula and get them, scoop them up, like if we were watching that game.
That's right.
You might read it in the paper the next day, whatever. But it's a constant stream of information, but there is nobody that can tell me that this occurred back in the 80s and 90s.
Not like this.
What is wrong with these players?
Not like this. And we thought about this and we talked about it like 2 weeks ago, remember? Because all the Achilles, just Achilles in particular, which is a hard muscle to tear, but we've seen at least, 10 of them between NFL and college football over the last 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks.
Cam Akers, Carl Lawson, right. Brandon Graham. Those are 3 stars.
The kid at Minnesota.
The running back who's terrific.
Right? There's been so many of them.
Minnesota College, for those who know.
University of Minnesota, exactly, the Golden Gophers. And so it's been weird. And at the time, I just maybe these guys aren't training right. Maybe they're not doing the same things, the same ways as they used to, or perhaps, and I think it's maybe more of this, because we've pushed away the attrition in camp, right? The pounding and the calcification, so to speak, that your body necessarily needs to play football. You don't do it in camp anymore. There's no two-a-days. There's a reason that you did two-a-days back in the day. It was so your body would get used to, getting pounded, recovering quickly, because you got to go back out and practice right away. And you do that for 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. By the time you get to the regular season and you're playing one game, it actually doesn't feel that hard, right? And so maybe that's part of it. Or these guys are just grossly unlucky. And I can't chalk it up to that. So there's got to be something with how these off seasons are being managed anymore, because there are so many injuries, and some of them are season-ending injuries. Like Tua, he did his ribs. That's just unlucky. His offensive line stinks.
True.
He got abused.
Their PFF grades were horrendous.
Abused. And
Miami.
The Bills had 6 sacks, I think.
They shut him out.
But it was at least 15 quarterback hits at least between Tua and who came in? I can't remember who came in at the end of the for them. So at the end of the day, it was just one of those moments where Tua just got unlucky. He got hit the wrong way. He got unlucky. But some of these other ones are not. Andy Dalton
that seemed fairly innocuous.
Running wide open, trying to pick up some extra yardage. Just takes one step, wants to dip out of bounds. He comes up lame.
You know what that reminded me of? Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yes.
Only it was the opposite sideline a couple years ago. Same deal.
Non-contact injury with nothing really aggressive happening.
Yep.
So,
Well, listen, I think your theory about repetition is spot on. And I know it's not exactly the same, but I knew I could take two things to the bank, whether I was 7 or whether I was 21, until I stopped playing. I had to go, all right, as a baseball player. You knew you were getting a big cut on the palm from the bottom of your head as a lefty hitter, my right palm hitting the bat. And I knew that I was getting a raspberry either on my behind, which hurt like hell, and you know about those.
From sliding.
Or on my knee, or both. And once they were the calcification, and you got used to it, then they went away, you play the whole season, right? So maybe there is something to it. I think there's something else, and I've said this a few times. I don't know exactly what supplements these guys are taking, but I believe in it. I believe, and I've read up on this because I've had some of these injuries. When you take these nutritional things from, I'm not even going to give the stores a name. You know the stores where you get the stuff. I'm not talking about illegal stuff. I'm talking about powders, right? I believe that it so severely dries out the tendons. It dries out tendons.
Yes.
And I think that's a big reason for the ruptured Achilles
BT,
phenomenon. It's crazy.
This is why in college I pulled my hamstring all the time because I was
Were you taking Metarex back then?
Well, basically creatine, whatever brand it was.
I took it too.
But I was freebasing it.
I mean, I would have snorted it if it told me if I was going to make majors.
That's right. And it made me, I was strong, but I would always, every 3 weeks, I was hurting or straining a hamstring or pulling it, especially in the off season when I was running track. And so I just stopped taking it, and it kind of went away. Maybe I just wasn't working out as hard, or my muscle mass wasn't the same. But I agree that there's something to that, right? We just don't know.
No, but it's crazy.
It is crazy.
Now listen, T.J. Watt, he didn't really practice much. He didn't go. Okay, that's one thing. Graham with the Achilles. All right, we don't know exactly why that helped. We mentioned Dalton. That's obviously worth watching because Justin Fields didn't look very good throwing the ball. The Bears still managed to win the game, by the way.
Because their defense could be great.
Defense is good, man. We knew that coming in, but it might even be a little bit better than we thought. Now, what's really interesting here is the Tua situation. By the way, Jacoby Brissett was in there once Tua went down. So at least they've got a viable backup. But the Tyrod Taylor situation, first of all, they hung around a little longer than I thought they would. They against the Cleveland Browns did not cover that point spread for whatever it's worth for those of you who care. But more importantly, with Tyrod Taylor, poor guy has no luck. With this hamstring getting jacked up now, they've got to make a decision on Deshaun Watson.
Yes.
Now, there's no way Deshaun Watson's going to play, but until that actually happens, remember the kid from Stanford, the third round?
Davis Mills.
Who didn't look very well. He's not ready. It's no fault of the young man, but what do they do?
I mean, from what I heard today, that even with Tyrod Taylor being potentially out, we don't know because he's day to day.
Okay.
But I mean, he came up lame and didn't go back in the game. That means there's something, more than just, I felt a tweak in my hamstring because he didn't play again. And Davis Mills ended up playing the rest of the game. And he's okay if you're just going to turn around and hand it off or throw some quick out routes, but you need to manage in a game plan. Davis Mills is probably not the guy. Obviously, Deshaun Watson is a healthy scratch. He's been a healthy scratch for the last 2 weeks. He's on the roster, so he's getting paid to basically do nothing. But they're saying he's going to stay inactive, which, I mean, it's just they don't want to take the risk. I don't know what the risk is, to be perfectly honest with you.
Well, the risk is the NFL now jumps in and then puts him on whatever list, the exempt list, and then they can't trade him.
Or
it'd be tougher to trade him. I think that's why they're shielding that.
Yeah.
By the way, I mean, can you imagine if they pulled something like this?
Wouldn't you rather know that, right? Other than kicking the can down the road, they just keep kicking the can down the road.
I think they already know.
Then why don't they just get it over with?
Because the illusion.
Because whoever's going to trade for him, just sorry to interrupt.
That's all good.
Whoever ultimately is going to trade for him, they're likely going to want him to play. Right? It's not going to, hey, we're going to trade for Deshaun Watson, and we're just going to do what the Texans did for you, make you a healthy scratch for the next 16 weeks or whatever it may be.
Unless you're Miami. If Tua's okay, obviously Deshaun's twice as good as Tua, but I could see Miami trying to get him for 75 cents on the dollar and stashing him, and then this offseason moving away from Tua.
But
wouldn't surprise me.
It's going to happen regardless. So whether it's next year, he's going to be suspended for at least 6 games, or they try to play him now, he's going to be suspended for at least 6 games. Wouldn't it make sense just to get it over with?
Not if it's resolved in the offseason. It's not 6 games. You can get 95 cents on the dollar rather than 75. I think that's the gamesmanship here.
Yeah.
How about you'd have to be incredibly brazen to even try this, but can you imagine now? You'd have to make the inactive list comes out 3 hours before the game?
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
I think it's
maybe. I think it's earlier than that.
Well, no, you mean closer to the game. I think it's actually 90 minutes.
Okay.
They've changed it because of COVID, so you can activate players
That's
up to
true.
90 minutes before the game.
Can you imagine if they pulled the fast one and didn't give the NFL enough time to then levy their punishment? And they said 90 minutes before the game, Deshaun Watson's active, and the NFL's like, I'm sure the NFL could still say you're not playing, but. That would make it a bit more of an obstacle.
That would. I mean,
he's not playing for the Texans this year. Not happening.
I don't think he is either, but I don't know. It just feels like they're playing games behind the scenes, and right now they're in a tough spot. Like they won their first game, and it was almost surprising. They actually played really well against the Cleveland Browns.
They're a lot better than I thought they were.
And if Tyrod Taylor doesn't get hurt, they might beat the Browns.
Jarvis Landry got hurt.
That's right.
I mentioned him.
Yep. So
speaking of the Browns,
I think the Houston Texans are better than we expected.
Oh, they are.
And it was a lot because of the stability of their quarterback. The quarterback's gone now. But if Deshaun Watson was available, I mean, maybe they actually are pretty good.
Well, think about this team. They already won a game, so they're already miles better than we. We thought that this team was going to be 0-17 and maybe set a record for point differential futility. At least I did. Like, the way I positioned the Texans was bag of rocks, like substandard, not even professional.
Yes.
So I guess I got to take that one on the chin. They got to win. They got one more win than my team.
I know.
Of course they do. All right, let's get the update from Mac, who's going to tell you what's happening. I'm sure he gets some injuries in there as well. After that, 5-star rewind, all the best sounds around week 2 around the NFL. We'll get to Dak and the boys coming up in hour number 2. Jameis and the Saints coming up in hour number 3, and some college football in hour number 2 after Act. Here he is. All right, Tiki and Tierney back, CBS Sports Radio, CBS Sports Network. A little 5-star rewind coming up in a moment. First, though, time to ask the pros. You can shoot anything biased, anything that has piqued your interest. And it's brought to you by our friends at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Just drop us a tweet at CBS Sports Radio. That's at CBS Sports Radio, hashtag Ask the Pros. And stick around, listen later on. Tiki and I will take the best one, along with Stu Getz and Santher, and we'll hammer it out on the air before we bounce right around 6 Eastern. Give you some props as well. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts or your car care needs. Guarantee low prices and excellent customer service from our good friends over at O'Reilly Auto Parts. All right, Teak, we've got next hour, a little college football. We'll get into Dak and the boys. We'll do inbounds, out of bounds as well. Also, Jameis and the Saints, who, please stand up. Please stand up. Please stand up. Which is the real Saints team? What do you think? Short answer. Closer to week 1, don't expand. Closer to week 1, closer to week 2.
2.
Ooh, that's not what Saint fans wanted to hear. We'll do that a little later. 5-star rewind. You ready to roll?
I am.
Let's go.
Time to buckle in.
Hey, baby, let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. Have some fun.
Here's your latest 5-star rewind. Hello? Tiki and Tierney give you the best highlights from their top 5 games over the past weekend.
I know I'm going to get got, but I'm going to get mine more than I get got, though.
Here we come. It's a man's game now.
And 5-star rewind brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. It's the one when you got to get stuff done. Drink it in seconds, feel it in minutes, last for hours, tastes great as well. That is 5-Hour Energy. As always, we start on the Sunday night stage. And how about Lamar going around and over everything in sight?
Jackson falls back into the shotgun. He takes the snap, holds it out for Williams. Jackson keeps it, runs right, and somersaults into the end zone. Touchdown Ravens, and Baltimore has taken the lead. 3 minutes and 14 seconds to go, and the Ravens have their first lead tonight. Lamar Jackson kept it, went running to the right. He was all by his lonesome, and a little showtime at the end. Baltimore goes in front.
A little punctuation. That's how it sounded. Ryan Ratke doing his thing on Westwood One Sports. 36-35 is where it was at that point. That is how it finished up. big statement win for the beat-up Ravens.
Yeah,
Teak.
big one because they have so many guys that have been out. But Lamar Jackson he's just special when his mind is right, and he's able to push the mistakes that could have marred this game early out of his head. He rushed for 107 yards and 2 touchdowns. You saw the second one there. When he takes over a game like that with his legs, it's really hard to combat it. On the other side, the Kansas City Chiefs they made some self-inflicted errors down the stretch, which is rare. They'll be fine. Patrick Mahomes threw for 343 yards, and maybe this is humbling in a way. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, as we talked about earlier, had that critical fumble at the end of the game. But Kansas City will bounce back, but huge win for the Ravens, and more importantly for the psyche of Lamar Jackson.
No doubt, and they get a chance to bounce back. Do the Chiefs coming up this weekend against the Chargers. This will be a good game on CBS. 1 Eastern, Kansas City early. 6.5-point favorites. They're 1-1 on the season. Same with the Ravens. 1 up, 1 down. Up next at Detroit. And, of course, Lions playing tonight. Baltimore early 9-point favorites. Up next, let's bounce to Pittsburgh. How about Henry Ruggs showed off the 4-3 wheels?
Drake in the backfield. Carr takes a snap from the gun. Pump fake, gonna go deep down the middle. Got it. Ruggs grabs it. Jackpot, baby! Henry Ruggs goes the distance.
All right, that's how it sounded. Brent Musburger. Brent, did he drop the spread there as well? Raiders Radio Network. Well, I tell you what, Ruggs was a little confounding a year ago, as were the Raiders. That late season swoon, the collapse. But, Teak, here we are.
Yeah.
And we were both critical coming into the season. 2 wins, and they won in Pittsburgh, 3,000 miles away.
That's right. 382 yards and 2 touchdowns for Derek Carr. We kind of always want to question what his future is and how good he can actually be, but he's proven these first couple of weeks, beating the Ravens and then now beating the Pittsburgh Steelers, that he can ball. And when he has to score, if he needs to score, he can take care of that as well. On the other side, the Steelers, man, their offense is leaving a lot to be desired. They just simply cannot run the ball.
Like last year.
Yeah, you're
Couldn't
right.
run it.
Najee Harris is trying his best. He did score a touchdown as a receiver, but they just can't get anything going in the ground game, which makes things extraordinarily difficult for Big Ben, who looks old all of a sudden.
Yes, he does. You mentioned how you and I and many have vacillated on their pledging allegiance to Derek Carr. One thing about Derek Carr, he hears it, he processes it. Remember the post-game interview Monday night? And he uses it as fuel. Here he is on the doubters.
We haven't done what we've wanted to do for the last couple of years. We haven't been to playoffs since 2016. I don't blame that thought process, but at the same time, just as a competitor, you're just like I don't care about any of that. Just put the ball down and let's see if we can turn these into wins. Now, we've started 2-0 before, but we got to keep going. We can't let this thing go downhill.
2 undefeated teams in the AFC. The Denver Broncos and the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yes.
Nobody was picking that.
I did like the Broncos, though, but I don't know about them. And by the way, they're playing the Jets next week. They'll be 3-0.
And they were balling.
Yes, they are. And Teddy Bridgewater is playing well. We'll get to them a little bit later. Vegas 2-0, as Tiki said. Pittsburgh 1 up, 1 down. So the Steelers will host Cincinnati. That's a 1 Eastern game on CBS early. Steel Dogs 4.5-point favorites. And Las Vegas hosts the Miami team with myriad issues. That O-line was pathetic. We'll see if Tua is healthy. That is on CBS as well. So Vegas streaking possibly toward a 3-0 start. Up next in Seattle, wild game. Derrick Henry, absolute beastin'.
They run Henry on the left side. He's got some room to the 45. He's outside to the 50. He's to the 40. He's to the 30. He's to the 20. He's to the 10. He's to the 5. He's to the end zone. Yes. Touchdown, Titans. Derrick Henry just went 60.
Does that counter hand back? Guess how it worked this time? Touchdown.
182 yards. That's what he racked up there. That's how it sounded. Mike Heath of the Titans radio laugh track in the background there. Final score. This was a wild one. 33-30 in overtime. But how about this? 52-0 were the Seattle Seahawks when they had a lead of at least 15 points in Seattle. No mas.
Yeah,
what a win.
This was a grit win for the Tennessee Titans because they had Derrick Henry bottled up for most of this game. Through his first 13 carries, BT, 35 yards, and then he finished his last 22. So do that math. That's 35 carries he had. You don't see running backs get 35 carries anymore. His last 22 carries, 147 yards and 3 touchdowns. The dude is just a monster. Very rarely can you take back over a game with the run game. Usually you look to the quarterback. What's Ryan Tannehill going to be able to do? They just turn around and hand it off. And at some point in any game that Derrick Henry is in, the defense, I don't care how good you are, you just get tired of hitting that big dude, man. You just get tired of it. And he starts running around you, laying through your tackles, and making big play after big play. But this was a grit win for Tennessee on the road. I mean, Seattle is so good. They just let it slip away, and then they ended up making many mistakes down the stretch, including that big sack that Russell Wilson should have been a safety, by the way, in overtime.
Yes.
But ultimately, you got to give a lot of credit where credit's due, and that's to Tennessee.
I mean, there's been a few big running backs in there. Brandon Jacobs, your former teammate. Christian Okoye, our buddy. Yeah. This is Christian Okoye, the Nigerian nightmare.
Yeah.
You're listening to Tiki and Tierney. I think he called me Tierney. We love him.
Yes, that's my name.
Tierney. Riggins was big. John Riggins was big. But, I mean, Derrick Henry is different big. So, Seattle 1-1. They're at Minnesota, who's yet to win, by the way. Despite Kirk Cousins playing pretty well, Seattle's an early point favorite there. And Tennessee also 1-1 will host the Colts. Colts have some issues, and the Titans are -5, 1 Eastern CBS. How about this? In Indianapolis, get used to hearing this duo. How about a little Stafford to Cooper Kupp?
Stafford looking left, works through his progression, fires underneath the goalpost. It's Kupp again. Touchdown, LA! His second score of the afternoon puts LA back on the high side. 23-21 at the 12-minute mark, fourth quarter, with an extra point to follow.
And it would wrap up 27-24. The final, Rams by a 3-spot. J.B. Long doing his thing on the Rams radio network. In postgame, Matthew Stafford talking about the offense, which obviously is pretty good.
We were explosive today on offense. We just weren't as efficient as I think we can be and want to be. Starts with me, there were some opportunities to hit some guys, didn't hit them. We didn't connect on a few plays that I think would have changed the game a little bit, just kind of kept the momentum going for us. There were plays in the game, shoot, I wish I'd have had this, I wish I would have thrown that ball there, but at that point in the game, it's doing whatever it takes to win the game. And last time I played here, 2-minute drive to win the game, field goal to win it. So felt like, why not go do it again?
Zeke, top of your head, Cooper Kupp, top 7 wide receiver right now, or no?
There's no doubt about it. Through 2 games, 271 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's big. He's reliable. And Matt Stafford and he clearly have a great connection already. Unfortunately for the Indianapolis Colts, Carson Wentz is hurt again. And again, this is a result of the elite defense that the Rams possess. Aaron Donald, they showed some during the broadcast some breakdowns of where he would line up. It was almost like defensively they knew exactly where Jonathan Taylor was trying to get. They line him up. They line him up over the left guard. Aaron Donald beats the left guard, tackles him, moves him over to the right defensive end. They run off tackle to now the offensive left, which is the right at Aaron Donald. He disrupts that play as well. He's just masterful how disruptive he can be as an interior lineman. But the big story for the Colts is that Carson Wentz twists his ankle, goes down, and hopefully it's nothing serious. But I mean, with Carson Wentz, it seems like he's always hurt. He just can't stay healthy.
Well, it seems that way because it's true. And by the way, the Colts' red zone offense was really bad.
Yeah.
Alarmingly insufficient. Rams now 2-0. How about this dudes we have coming up in week 3? They will host the Buccaneers, 4:25 Eastern on Fox. Heavyweight battle. Rams early 1-point favorites. And speaking out west, Teague, finally in Arizona, Kyler Murray on the early MVP list.
Back to throw, Murray in trouble. Spins out of there to his left, being chased by 2 Vikings, and launches it deep, wide open near side at the 40s. Rondale Moore caught at the 30, at the 20, at the 15, 10, 5, touchdown. Kyler Murray, you are ridiculous. Murray magic, 77-yard touchdown pass. 99.9% of the quarterbacks on the planet get sacked. But not only does Kyler Murray not get sacked, he throws a touchdown.
Nasty is as nasty does.
We'll overlook the 2 picks because he had 400 yards and he threw for over 11 yards a pop and some dynamic plays as always. Kyler Murray is terrific. That's how it sounded. Dave Pash and Ron Wolfley, Cards Radio Network, and Arizona 2 up and no down. The Vikings yet to win.
Yeah, no, it's a shame. Dalvin Cook had quite a day, 131 yards, but he didn't get into the end zone. Kirk Cousins had a day, too. He threw for 3 touchdowns, but the magic of Kyler Murray is real. Obviously, the pick six notwithstanding, he was fantastic. 29 of 36, threw for 400 yards. He had a rushing touchdown as well, and And with 6 minutes to go in the game and the Minnesota Vikings bringing all-out pressure, Kyler Murray hangs in just long enough to do that deep pass to Christian Kirk and just set them up to get this win. I mean, this is a character win for the Arizona Cardinals. They're 2-0 to start the season. We had many conversations this offseason about Cliff Kingsbury. He's got it going defensively, as we saw in Week 1. Chandler Jones had all those sacks. T.J. Watt also. This weekend, it was the offense having to outscore a quality opponent. Minnesota, unfortunately, 0-2, but they'll turn this around. I just don't know if they're going to be playoff bound.
I don't like the Vikes. You know that. But Kirk Cousins has played well, as you said. He touched on what's happening 2 weeks into the season. Here's Minnesota's quarterback.
I could have told you in April or July or August that I believe in this locker room, the guys in the team, the group we have. And so after 2 games, my opinion hasn't changed at all.
Okay, and there you go. That is Tiki and Tierney. Week 2, not around again. What am I trying to say here, Tiki? Keep getting in my head. What am I trying to say here?
5-star rewind.
5-star rewind. By the way, Week 3 starts Panthers, Texans. So Sam Darnold. And again, it's not going to be Deshaun Watson, but at least the surprising Texans. That's Thursday. The Sunday night game is going to be, let me just double check. It's not the Bucs and the Rams are the 4:25 Eastern. Packers, Niners, very good Sunday night game on paper. Then you got the Eagles and Dallas on Monday.
Yeah.
So very meaningful games, divisional matchups, conference supremacy on the line, even though it's early. These are games where you lay the foundation for a big season.
Yeah, you're right, especially for some of these teams that have been struggling a little bit. The Cowboys and the Eagles is going to be an interesting one with both of these quarterback matchups. And for the Cowboys, I got to tell you, I know Zeke is the man. He's the one that was paid. Tony Pollard, he balled.
Yes, he always does. I mean, there's a reason why Stephen Jones said Pollard could play. And we're going to get to the Dallas Cowboys coming up next, hour 2.
The world moves pretty fast. 1 minute you're standing, the next you're dragging. How can you keep up? I'll tell you. I'm Ira Madison III, host of Keep It. Each week, Louis Vertel, Aida Osman, and I do the hard work of exploring the intersection between entertainment, culture, and politics, with guests like Billy Porter, Catherine O'Hara, Ronan Farrow, Francesca Ramsey, and more. New episodes of Keep It drop every Wednesday. Listen on Odyssey, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.